The morning sun streamed through the tall glass windows of Steedy Mary's hospital. Yet inside the waiting area, the air was thick with despair. Among weary faces and hurried footsteps, one voice rose above the rest, broken, trembling, desperate. A young mother, her clothes torn at the seams, a teddy bear dangling from her arm, clutched her sick child tightly against her chest. Her knees buckled as she collapsed near the reception counter, crying out, "Please, someone please save my daughter." It wasn't just a cry for help. It was the sound of a soul breaking beneath the weight of helplessness. People turned to look, some with pity, others with indifference, but none stepped forward. To most, she was invisible, just another struggling soul in a world moving too fast to care. But in that moment, fate placed someone in the hallway who was never supposed to be there. A man whose life was built on riches, power, and privilege. A man whose decisions moved markets and built empires. His name was Adrien Cross, one of the wealthiest men in the country. And what he witnessed that morning would change him forever. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Emotional Hub Life Stories. Comment below and tell us why stories of hope matter to you. Adrien had only come to the hospital for a quick board meeting about a new medical wing his foundation was funding. He had no intention of stopping in the waiting area. His life ran on a carefully managed schedule of luxury cars, private jets, and appointments that never waited. But as he passed the counter, he froze. His sharp eyes landed on the woman kneeling on the cold floor, holding a fragile little girl whose cheeks were pale and whose chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. The mother's name was Marissa Lane. Life had not been kind to her. Once a bright student with dreams of becoming a teacher, she had been abandoned by her partner when their baby, Sophie, was only a few months old. Since then, she worked 3 cleaning jobs, often skipping meals so her daughter could eat. Poverty clung to her not just in her torn jacket and worn shoes, but in the way her shoulders slumped with exhaustion. Yet her eyes told a different story. They burned with a fierce love, the kind only a mother fighting for her child could carry. For weeks, Sophie had been ill. A fever that would not break, weakness that kept her from standing, and a cough that worsened by the day. Doctors confirmed she needed urgent, expensive treatment. Without it, her chances were slim. Marissa begged every charity, knocked on every door, but all she received were sympathetic smiles and whispered apologies. And now, at the hospital desk, she was being told once again, "We can't start the treatment without payment." Her cries echoed through the sterile hallway. "Please, she's just a child. Take me instead if you must, but don't let her die. I'll do anything." Her voice cracked as Sophie whimpered faintly in her arms. Adrien felt something stir inside him, a feeling he hadn't allowed in years. His empire had been built on hard contracts, ruthless negotiations, and an unshakable belief that every person controlled their own destiny. But as he looked at Marissa and her fragile daughter, he saw truth he had long ignored. Sometimes people didn't fail because of laziness or weakness. Sometimes life simply crushed them under burdens too heavy to bear. He could have walked away. He could have told himself it wasn't his problem. But instead, his steps moved toward her. When Marissa lifted her tear-streaked face and her desperate eyes met his, she didn't see a billionaire. She saw another human being who might still have a heart. Adrien spoke quietly to the nurse. In moments, the resistance faded. "Prepare the child for immediate treatment. All expenses will be covered under my account," he said firmly. The nurse, stunned, nodded and rushed to comply. Marissa gasped, clutching Sophie closer, afraid the promise would vanish. "Why?" she whispered through sobs. "Why would you do this for us?" Adrien didn't answer right away. His gaze fell on Sophie's tiny hand wrapped around the teddy bear, the symbol of innocence she clung to even in sickness. Finally, he said, "Because no child should pay the price for what the world failed to give. And no mother should beg for mercy that should already be hers." Hours passed. Sophie was admitted, and doctors began the life-saving procedure. Marissa waited outside, trembling with a mixture of fear and hope. Adrien stayed to his expensive suit and polished shoes, looking out of place among the worn plastic chairs. Yet he sat beside her in silence, his presence a strange comfort. Memories haunted him as he waited. Long ago, Adrien himself had grown up in poverty. His mother had endured countless nights of hunger just to keep him alive. He had buried those memories beneath layers of wealth and success, never allowing himself to feel that pain again. But Marissa's voice had torn down those walls, reminding him of where he came from and of the love of a mother who gave everything. Hours later, the doctors returned with news. Sophie's condition had stabilized. The treatment was working. Relief washed over Marissa's face as she collapsed into tears, this time of gratitude. She turned to Adrien, struggling to find words strong enough to thank him. But Adrien wasn't finished. He learned about Marissa's struggles, how she juggled jobs, how rent consumed her small income, how every day was a battle just to give Sophie a chance at life. His heart, hardened by years of business battles, softened in the face of her resilience. Quietly, he made a decision. He arranged for Marissa to receive steady financial support, not as charity, but as a job within his foundation. Flexible hours, enough to provide for Sophie without sacrificing her health. He also set up an education trust fund for Sophie, ensuring she would never be denied opportunities because of poverty. Marissa, overwhelmed, shook her head in disbelief. "You don't even know us. Why go this far?" Adrien finally allowed himself a small smile. "Because once, someone gave my mother and me a chance and it changed everything. I think it's time I return that gift." The story of Adrien Cross and Marissa Lane spread quietly, at first whispered among hospital staff, then carried by those who had witnessed the scene. In a world often clouded by greed and indifference, one act of kindness had ignited hope. A billionaire, once untouchable, had chosen to bend down and lift someone who had fallen. That choice not only saved the little girl's life, it rewrote the future of an entire family. As the sun set that evening, Marissa held Sophie close, her daughter's tiny breath stronger now, her color returning. For the first time in years, Marissa felt something she thought she had lost forever: safety, hope, and the belief that miracles still happen. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Emotional Hub Life Stories. Stories like this remind us that compassion is more powerful than wealth, and a single act of kindness can change lives forever.